The Quechen legend of the creation. Mr. Bryant grew up in between cultures and considers himself fortunate to have experienced both traditional Quechen and modern American ways of life. As a child, he listened to tribal elders telling the creation story. No two narrations were quite the same, and he found each version to be useful for filling in gaps left by the others. As an adult, he researched the English language written versions of the story and found greater differences. They didn't know too much English back then, he explains, and with regard to some details, the interpreters didn't know how to put it right. Mr. Bryant eventually synthesized his childhood memories and the results of his research in an article entitled The Kwatsan Legend of the Creation, which appeared as a 3-part series in the Quechen newsletter in 1995. His work provides a different perspective and a bit more information about the early events of the creation than does Harrington's. Mr. Bryant retold his version of the creation story in the Quechen language on January 27, 2004, using a draft of the Quechen legend of the creation as a guide. His narration is approximately 60 minutes in duration. The migration of the human tribes, the modern age, has a different view of how Native Americans came to populate the New World. The migration of the human tribes presents Mr. Bryant's personal view of the origins of the Quechen people. Incorporating modern scientific information, it begins with the migration of people across the Bering Strait from Asia to North America. It then describes how the ancestors of the human people traveled through the continent, dividing themselves into groups and eventually settling in what became their homelands. This portion of the narrative, which also explains how the tribes got their names, makes a fitting conclusion to traditional creation stories as well as to the modern account. The migration of the tribes is a spontaneous original narrative notable for the ease and fluency with which it was told. George Bryant narrated the migration of the human tribes in the Quechen language on April 1, 2004. This narration is approximately 15 minutes long. From English to Quechen, we began with the intention of translating the narratives of Harrington 1908 and Bryant 1995 back into Quechen. We soon found that converting an English language narrative into idiomatic Quechen is no simple task. It requires not just the translation of words and sentences, but extensive restructuring at the levels of syntax, rhetorical structure, and local organization. It also typically involves the elaboration and expansion of material in order to express detail at the level considered appropriate in idiomatic Quechen and the recreation of conversations that are merely summarized in the English version. In short, it amounts to retelling the story in Quechen using the English version as a guide. Thank you, friends. Stay tuned till next time. Take care.